It feels like it's -20, but it is still a Saturday and it is 9 o'clock, which means only one thing. Yes! It's time for the Monster Magic Saturday Show. Let's do this.
Wake up, it's a beautiful morning. Feel the sun shining for your eyes.
Woo-hoo-hoo. Good morning, everybody. Ooh, it's a bit brass monkeys here on the boat. I'm guessing all of you with central heating probably aren't suffering quite as much. Before I carry on with the show, I must just say it was the London Magic Convention last weekend, hosted and all organised by the Nyman family, Preston and Andy. It was brilliant. It's just the right size. The venue, the Lyric Theatre in Hammersmith, is perfect. There were lots and lots of dealers there, which was great for me. I got to meet some faces that I don't see very often, and also meet some of you guys. It was really, really good. The lectures were great. The competition was great, and really do go next year. It is well worth it. It's easy to get to, and it's just a great relaxed day of magic. So Preston, Andy and family, thank you very much. But now, come on. There's only one trick you've been waiting for, the one trick that you want me to show you, the one trick that you want me to review. Yes, it is Repo, a chain of unusual events by Tobias Dostal. Tobias is fast becoming a creator that people just anticipate and look forward to all of his releases. He's got a unique way of thinking. He doesn't just come up with a card trick. He comes up with something that is genuinely magical, and he's done it again. His last trick, Liquefy, was a massive seller, so popular. It is good. It's really good fun to perform as well, and it is just one of those mind-blowing effects that your spectators won't see coming. This is a much more traditional type of magic trick, perhaps, but with that Tobias touch that makes it look like real magic. The main effect is that you show a little key on a thin silver bracelet. You put that bracelet over your participant's wrist. You can then have the key melt off the chain. You can then vanish the key and it flies through the air and lands back on the chain whilst it is on your participant's wrist. You can also just have the chain appear out of thin air. You can vanish the chain very cleanly. You can vanish the key very cleanly. You can make the key turn into the chain and vice versa. It is a really versatile piece of magic. I'd say it's a sort of traditional magic trick. The plot is very similar. It's almost like Ring on Shoelace, which is a plot that I love. Sort of hints a little bit of John Derris's Staggering, which I think was based on an old McAllister trick. But what you really get in here is a utility gimmick, and Tobias's ingenuity and his creativity gives you so many ideas that you can, a bit like Ring on a Shoelace, you can almost jazz with it and just have fun in a very impromptu way. But Tobias's teaching is superb, and the use of this gimmick is very easy to use. You're going to want to practice it in front of the mirror, so it's easy, but you're going to want to practice it. A lot of the techniques really is basically mime and mimicry, and having your participants, your audiences, focus under your control to make the trick more powerful and really feel like genuine magic. And you will have some amazing reactions from this. What you get in this box is, I've taken some bits out, haven't I? You get the key on the chain. So this is the key that the chain and everything else that your participants will be inspecting or having round their wrist. As you can see, it's a very thin chain. There is a reason for that, but it's very bright, it's very sparkly. It looks like a jewelry chain in many ways, a nice, delicate jewelry chain, which really does add to this. When you put this over your participant's wrist, particularly if it's a lady, if it's Big Dave down spoons, this may not apply, but it's almost quite an intimate moment of putting this over someone's wrist, because it is delicate and it does feel like jewelry. It does have a little precious quality to it. You know, I say it's silver. It isn't, but it looks like it could be. But the key is quite small and quite simple. Again, there's a reason for that, but it's just enough, and it feels like it could be a key to a special jewelry box, or a special box that you might keep something in, not a door key, perhaps, you know, something that might hold a secret, which is very nice, and it adds a little bit of charm to what you're doing. Indeed, in one of Tobias's routines, he does say this is a key to a cabinet or a door, and he opens that door and then produces the chain out of thin air, which is a lovely bit of theatre. You also get a couple of other keys, like so. One of these is gimmicked, and one of them isn't, and the spare chain without the key linked on. You also get a little red envelope, which can be used for some routines, and you get the gimmick as well, which I'm not going to show you. The gimmick is super simple, but it is exactly what it needs to be, and it interacts with the other props. This chain, for example, the way it can vanish this chain, thanks to the natural properties of the chain and the natural properties of the key, it vanishes them so cleanly that jaws will drop. People will be expecting some sort of extraneous move or anything like that, but no, you vanish it and your hands appear empty. Or you can have it transform into the key. You can almost do a miser's dream. You can constantly vanish it, put it in your pocket and bring it back out again. Super stuff. The tutorial is by Tobias himself, and I think that is so important. He gives you all of the tips and things that he has learned when performing this, and that really is a lot of added value. It's not always about the handling. Sometimes it's simply just about the psychology of the trick, and those little things, these really small things, really do add up to a much bigger difference, and it'll help your magic right across the board if you just listen to Tobias. He starts by slowly taking you through some of the basic moves, and really there's only one or two in the whole trick. How to vanish the chain and make it reappear, and then how to vanish the key and make that reappear, and then how to transform the key into the chain. These things you're going to be performing in front of the mirror and having a lot of fun. This is one of those things. I mean, it is a great thing to perform, but just learning it is a great road full of enjoyment, and little moments where you're kind of amazing yourself and just thinking, God, this just looks absolutely fantastic. And then Tobias runs through the main routine and having the key appear on the chain whilst it's around your participant's wrist. He does that with Javier. Javier has a good bit of input about how it feels as well, and how he also helps with the timing of it as well. He talks about where his eyes are, and what makes that just such a beautiful magic moment. And I would say that moment where it appears whilst the chain is on their wrist is probably the strongest bit, but the vanish is so clean, it really adds to it as well. And the ideas, because that is just one phase of many that you can do, you know, there's almost a finale. There's so many ideas here that just boom, that you can do before you get to that point. But that is an ideal way of rounding off your routine, because they are left with the chain, with the key on, that they can examine until their heart's content. Tobias then runs through some other ideas that he's done with it, almost of an impromptu nature. There's a way of just sort of having the chain dangling, and as you having the chain dangling, as you roll it up, it changes into coins until it's completely vanished. That's really nice. Again, pretty much on the spur of the moment. Again, you can do it with salt or sand, anything like that. And obviously the chain is just gone at the end of it, and they're just left with some dust. And if you think these ideas are just filler and nonsense, then think again, because Tobias runs through exactly how he carries this around as his everyday carry on his keyring, essentially. So you can do it at the drop of a hat, impromptu, when you just sort of see something and go like, I've got an idea, I'm going to try it out. The vanish is always exactly the same. What you make it reappear into or morph into is just almost unlimited, really. Anything that you can put into your hand. The chain, you can't really wear it, so Tobias's tips on carrying it around are invaluable, really. It's just an awkward size, I think. It's sort of too big to go on a wrist and too small to go around your neck. Finally, there are some routines with, I say finally, there's some bonus section, but there are some routines using the red envelope, where you can put the chain in the envelope and it vanishes from the envelope, and back and vice versa. Really, really good creative juices should be flowing. Anything like this, it doesn't even have to be this envelope. You can put it in anything pretty much and steal it out again almost instantly. Really, really good. There is a brief second video with some additional ideas on that go to the extreme, really, and are a little bit bonkers, but a lot of fun to watch, and just shows that, you know, you really are only limited by your imagination. It's one of those tricks that isn't difficult to do, but you won't have done any of the moves at all. You won't have had this gimmick before, so you've just got to get your muscle memory down to exactly how it works. And you can do that whilst you're watching Netflix or whatever you're doing, and just practice the move over and over again, and make it seamless. Basically, there shouldn't be any extra movements at all. That's what make these vanishes and appearances so good. You've got a completely empty hand, and without any moves, the chain or the key appears there. Again, especially with the vanishes, do listen to Tobias. It gives you a nice little time delay, tells you where to keep people focused. So practice the moves whilst watching telly, but everything else should be practiced in front of the mirror, or video yourself doing it, and watch where your eyes are and make sure you're performing it as correctly. I'm a massive fan of the borrowed fingering on shoelace. I think that is one of the best close-up tricks you can really do, because it's a borrowed ring. You can't borrow the key, unfortunately, and you can't do it with a borrowed ring. But if you do know any of those ring on shoelaces moves, you can probably try and adapt it. It'll probably give you some ideas for some extra phases you can do with this. If you're really looking for an issue with it, it would be the angles. You really don't want to be doing it surrounded. You need to have people in front of you. But if you're standing up at a table and people are all in front of you, you're absolutely fine. You've probably got a good 180. You can control the angles, how you have your hands, whether, you know, close to your body, facing the floor, any of that. So just be aware of where people are and you'll be absolutely fine. I'm trying to think of when I ever perform completely surrounded. I was trying to think about, and really never. If someone's behind me, I ask them to come round to the front so they can see what's going on. I think it's wonderful. It is very, very versatile. It's not difficult to do, does require practice, and if you can really mime and act a little bit, you'll be all the better for it. It's really easy to carry around, and it is so incredibly strong. You are leaving people with a memory that they will remember and will be telling people about for ages. That is Repo, a chain of unusual events by Tobias Dostal, just $50.99. Next up, it is the Bibby Bullet by Elliot Bibby. This is quite a nice, simple card trick. It's more of a revelation, really, than a card trick, but a revelation that you might very much enjoy performing. The idea is that you have a card selected and signed, lost in the deck. Your participant then forms their hand into a gun, makes a bang noise, and when you spread through the deck, you show that their card is the only card with a bullet hole in it. Elliot actually teaches 3 routines on the tutorial. The first one is the non-signed version. When he does it, he has the card spin off the deck as they shoot it. He doesn't teach how to do that spin, and it's not really necessary. You can just have them shoot the deck and go through, and it's fine. The selection. You do have to be able to do a force. He teaches a very simple force, but you can use your favorite one, provided it doesn't flash the gimmick at the same time. He then does the signed version, which is probably the best. I'm not sure having it signed really makes it any stronger as a trick, but it does make it a much better souvenir. And for me, that really is the point of this trick, is to hand this out as a souvenir, which I'll come to the gimmicks in the end. And then he also does a nice one where it's any card named ends up being the one with the bullet hole in. As you spread through the deck, all the other cards are normal apart from their chosen card. Free selection. What you get here are the cards. They're bicycle cards. You get red. You can get a blue one as well. You get 3. So you're good to go straight out of the box several times if you're using a red bicycle or a blue bicycle deck. But part of the tutorial is Elliot teaching you exactly how to make these cards. They are a bit of a faff. You can buy a deck already done by Elliot if you want to, but really if you just sit down and just make a load all at the same time, it's not too bad. You know, it's a hole punch, you know, a bit of burning, and so on. And like I say, if you're going to be doing the signed version, which I think is the one to do, then you are going to be getting through these pretty quickly, but make up a whole deck all in one go. This plot of a bullet hole has been around a while. Carol Fox had a version of it back in 76, I believe, in his book Clever Like a Fox. Terry Seabrook later in the 80s, 10 years later, had a brilliant, very, very funny routine using these gimmicks in his book, Terry Seabrook the Book, I think it's called, which Terry Seabrook was very funny. And if you really want to milk it for as much comedy as possible, it's probably worth reading Terry's routine for some ideas. But Elliot does run through some ideas of how to get a maximum out of this trick. You don't get to see a full performance. You don't get to see exactly how Elliot presents it, but he gives you ideas. You can do it as a story trick of, you know, you were playing cards and, you know, some gangsters came in and started firing, or you can just simply do it as a pure magic trick and that they are just shooting the card. It's up to you. And also comedy. For me, this just screams comedy. The comedy with their gun. Elliot's got a nice little joke of cocking the gun by pulling back their thumb to make sure, you know, be making sure that they keep the gun pointed down and don't point it at anyone else, because it is loaded after all. All of those sort of silly nonsense you can play with and have fun with. The signed version does involve doing a top change. Elliot covers this with a pretty dire standard joke, but it's enough to create that offbeat. There might be other ways of doing it other than the top change, but the top change is the cleanest and most direct way of doing it, and it's a good excuse to learn it if you haven't already got that one under your belt. And it is actually made easier because with the choreography of the trick, you are meant to be putting that card back towards the deck, so it's not as open as sometimes top changes can be. It's easy to dust over the named card routine in this, where they literally name any card you spread through the deck and it is the one with the bullet hole in. That is really, really strong, but will mean you are making a whole deck of these cards. Otherwise, these are great card reveals. Like, you can turn it into a comedy routine, you can turn it into strong magic. That's up to you, but get it signed and you've given your participant a really nice memento. That is the Bibby Bullet by Elliot Bibby, 24.99. Next up, it's Ultimate Clue 2.0 by Nicholas Mavresis. This is an update of his previous trick, Ultimate Clue, which came out a few years ago. It is a stonking 3-phase routine. You show your participant 14 cards, which all have pictures of guests at a party, one of which is a killer. Your participant gets to choose the killer, and you immediately identify that person. In the second phase, a killer is randomly selected and a sticker's put on the back. They are then mixed, and your participant somehow, without them knowing, finds that killer. And in the third phase, you show that the killer has been predicted all along as you pull out your prediction from a wallet. This trick has Nicholas Mavresis stamped all over it. The methods, each phase is different and ingenious and self-working, but really well thought out, using classic principles, but with touches that almost make it easier in so many ways. It is also all about these cards and the story and the plot that you give it. It obviously has its origins in the game Cluedo, or Clue as it were, but these aren't Cluedo characters. You're gonna have to tell a story about these being all guests at a party, if you like. The artwork, I really do like these cards. It reminds me of, is it Alan Moore who used to do the old Batman comics, the old DC comics back in the day? Really nice. And they are in a stack that's easy to remember, using another game that you're probably already familiar with, which means there's nothing to learn. And given how complicated you might imagine it is to remember the order of guests or names on a card, he's got that covered in a very clever way. And it also means that, especially with the first phase, there's almost no thought involved. You can instantly see which one your participant has selected, and all throughout you just know at a glance without any memory work at all, which is really clever. So you don't need to use any marks or anything like that. It is all done with these pictures. It's super smart. What you also get, other than the cards, is this little wallet, which helps you with the final prediction. You also get an envelope, which you can use instead of the wallet, should you wish. I think the wallet is better. It's not suspicious in any way, and it means that you end a little bit cleaner than if you use the envelope. And you also get this sticker, which you put on the back of the card when your participant has chosen it. You only get one of these, so I don't know whether it will eventually lose its stick. So you might want to perhaps invest in a little bit of repositional glue or zigzag blue glue just to keep this alive if you keep performing it over the years. It's a great, engaging 3-phase routine. Each phase is different enough and strong enough to stand on its own, should you wish, but the prediction at the end really does round it off nicely. It is so easy to do. You can give the cards a false mix. Nicholas teaches you that, again, very easy, nothing to that, and it's really strong piece of mentalism with what I think is just great props. I do think mentalism needs props, and I think these just add to it that little bit something special. And certainly in the second and third phases, these cards are mostly in your participants' hands, as they are either finding the killer or selecting the killer. So they're really involved in the trick. The third phase, if you do decide to do it, can involve a little bit of equivoke, but it's very simple. Nicholas teaches it really well, and unless you're repeating it for the same crowd over and over again, it will fly by. Equivoke is something that some people get really scared of. You've just got to do it nonchalantly and in a matter-of-fact way, and it is a really clean way of getting down to a final selection. It's a clever, direct, multi-faced piece of mentalism with some really nicely printed cards. And that is Clue 2.0 by Nicholas Mavresis, 29.99. And finally, we have My Opener by Jean-Pierre Vallarino and Jordan Victoria. I guess this is Jean-Pierre's opener. And it has everything that an opener requires. It's quick, it's easy to understand, and it is strong. You bring out your deck of cards, you spread them on the table or fan through them, and it says one odd-backed card left in the deck. You pull that odd-backed card out and you drop it into your box. Your participant then selects a card, they put it back in the deck, you ask them what that card is, and that is the one odd-backed card that you pull out of the card box. It is simple and strong. What you get in here, you are going to be doing some arts and crafts. Nothing difficult. As long as you can use a pair of scissors and some sticky tape, you'll be fine. You get this quite nice wallet which contains some card gimmicks in it, so it's quite handy to keep your gimmicks, use it just to keep your gimmicks nice and fresh when you're not performing trick, when you're not set up. These are the cards. They are gimmicked. I can't really show you exactly how they're gimmicked because I don't want to give the game away too much, but these are on red rider back. You can get them on blue rider back. It depends on, so these would be the reveals. So you'd be using a blue deck in this instance, and your reveal would be in red. If you want to use a red deck, then you need a blue reveal, obviously. And you can go on to use the deck afterwards, which is why it's probably quite a good opener, but the deck will be short a fair number of cards, so just bear that in mind. And then you get some stuff really for the arts and crafts, which you have to use your own card box, which you gimmick lightly, I suppose. You can only really use it for this trick once it's gimmicked, but it's a very simple way of gimmicking it, and it's got some really nice touches. So once you've taken the deck out and you spread them, you can flash that the box is completely empty before you put that blue odd card back in. And depending on how much gaffing you really want to do, the trick can sort of be done in two ways. So you have the card selected. It's not an entirely free choice, but it's quite a wide choice, shall we say. When that card's put back in the deck, you can then just ask them what the card is and then pull it out of the box. If you gaff the deck a little bit more, you can actually pull the card out of the box first and then ask them what their card is. That is obviously a much stronger route, and if you are going to be performing that, that is definitely the way to go. As a standalone trick, it is really, really good, and it kind of makes sense at the end as a clean-up that because the card you've got is odd backed, you're not going to put it back into the deck that you're going to be using for the rest of the night. You're going to pop it back in the box and put the box away. So it's kind of a logical clean-up to it. The only real issue is that you end up with a very short deck for the rest of your set on that table, so you're going to have to choose your card tricks appropriately afterwards, or just put the deck away, put it back in your pocket, and then maybe bring it out later after you've done something else. It's Jordan Victoria on the tutorial. He runs through the arts and crafts very clearly, despite English not being his first language. It is pretty good, and then he runs through exactly how to use it once the box is gimmicked. It's pretty straightforward, pretty simple. There's no real sleights involved with this at all. Because there is a bank of cards to choose from, the selection appears very fair. The quick flash of the empty box makes it feel like a really pretty clean open prediction effect. And that is My Opener by Jean-Pierre Vallarino, 24.99.
I wouldn't believe it if I hadn't watched it. Believe what? I don't know. I wasn't watching.
And that's it for this week. I'm afraid. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you don't already, then please do subscribe so you don't miss next week's show, which would be such a shame. But in between now and then, come on, let's put on some warm clothing, grab some magic, go out there and have some fun with the best hobby in the world. Bye-bye.